we cannot fully rely on our team's opinions when it comes to hiring A players, because they look at the hiring of an A player as a threat to their job sometimes. Welcome to the Laws Business Mastermind. This is the #1 talk show in the legal industry. And we're going to dive right in right now. We are talking about hiring with none other than Brandon, who is our COO at SMB Team. What we're going to reverse engineer is why that is a myth, like why it's just not true. And whatever you think is difficult about the hiring market right now, we're going to solve that today. And we're going to bring you through first some principles, which I'm going to walk you through as I see as CEO of SMB. And then Brandon's going to bring you through more tactical things that you can roll out today in your law firm to see a higher volume of quality people coming through the door who enthusiastically want to work with your law firm. So the first thing I want to start with is the story of how we learned this. 3 years ago, we had a culture crisis in our company. We were growing 300% year over year. And I realized this one day when this guy walked into my office who was stoned out of his mind. His eyes were like blitz red. And I felt just like I couldn't fire him. I felt like I couldn't let go of him because we only had, 5, 6 employees at the time. And I felt like if I let go of this person, it's going to be the end of the world for me, because then I'm going to have to take all of his work. So I essentially came to this conclusion that I was going to let this person go. And when I let that person go, it opened a can of worms. And I started realizing that the people that I had recruited onto my team were primarily the most accessible people, but not the most qualified people, and certainly not core value fits for the company. So what we ended up doing was I ended up rewriting what our core values were at the time. Because our core values as a company, they ended up not being what we really wanted them to be. And I started asking myself, who are we really as a company? See, we had core values like do whatever it takes. And that core value ended up hurting our company more than helping our company, because our team took that as, we'll do whatever it takes to make our clients happy, even if that means we have to work until midnight, grind the midnight oil, burn ourselves out. Sometimes we have to actually re-steer the ship of our law firm by resetting the core values of our law firm. So I wrote out all these new core values, and I started designing and actually deciding, who do I want on the bus, right? Who do I want on this journey of building a company? And I started not tolerating hiring people just because of convenience sake, and not hiring people just because they were likable in the interview, and going super deep into what is their personality traits and testing that before we extend a job offer, and giving them hoops that they needed to hop through in order to be considered in our recruiting process. And lo and behold, now we have a borderline bulletproof, always can improve in many areas, but a very, very, very solid, I think it's a 15-step interview or recruiting process that we now have built, which we're going to share with you today. So the first thing that I want to share as context is, the 3 books that I would recommend everyone read in order to master recruiting. So book number 1, Top Grading. Book number 2, Who. Book number 3, Double Double. So those 3 books, I think, will help you a lot around recruiting. So feel free to pick those books up to learn more about, A-level recruiting. So let's talk about 6 principles that we learned in our recruiting process that you can roll out in your firm. The first principle is you need differentiation across the first 3 steps of your recruiting process. The biggest problem with you not getting people to want to work with your law firm is you're not differentiating your law firm. Think about when a potential client chooses to sign up with your law firm. It's a lot easier for someone to sign up with you if you have been differentiated in their mind as an expert, as someone that they want to work with, right? That same thing applies in your recruiting process. So there are 3 touch points I want to break down. The first touch point is, what's the first thing that they see? There's 2 options for this. A is a job ad, okay? Or B is a outbound message. I'm talking about a recruiting process. I'm not talking about employee referrals, which we'll hit on later, okay? But I'm talking about a scalable recruiting process. There are two initial touch points. The first touch point is, again, the job ad itself that they see. Technically, it's the title of the job. It's the first thing they see. And the second type of a touch point, first touch point, is an outbound message that is sent to someone on LinkedIn, via email, whatever it be. What differentiators exist within that first touch point? When that person you want to work with your law firm sees the first thing from your law firm, what is the differentiator within it? Okay, for us, it's our growth rate. So we are adamant about, we constantly are telling people who apply to work with us, we are constantly telling them about us growing 200 to 300% year over year for now 5 years in a row, right? We are using that as a differentiator where they can understand there's a ton of upward growth potential if you join this company right now, right? So that is a differentiator for us in that step of the process. What is yours? The second touch point that you need differentiators within is the screening interview. This is absolutely vital. The first interview that you have with someone is a quick screening interview. You're trying to gauge two things in the screening interview. You're trying to understand that they can meet the non-negotiables of the job role. Non-negotiables are the musts, the minimum requirements of the job role. And your evidence to know if they can meet those non-negotiables is experience. So you're asking experience-based questions to vet out whether they're a fugazi or whether they're legit. The second category is the core value vetting. We have found that in a screening interview, the highest differentiation factor is selling them on your culture without directly selling them on your culture. So we want to sell them on the culture of your law firm without having to spout out what your culture is. We want to do it through the conversational tone of that screening interview. How charming is the person on that first touch point with that first screening interview? Like, does their intangibles, do their intangibles of the person holding the screening interview at your law firm, whether it's a hiring manager, maybe it's you. How like buttoned up are you during the, like we're famous for this. When people do screening interviews with us, they are like refreshed. They're like, oh my gosh, finally a non-buttoned up interview. Jeez, right? So that's the second differentiator for us is we want them to feel our culture through that screening interview as we vet their experience. We want them to feel the culture without us having to say, here's what our culture is, right? The third differentiation touch point is the vivid vision. The next step of the hiring process, we send them our vivid vision. So this is our vivid vision. This is basically where we intend to be by the end of 2023. We've had to write a new vivid vision because we've already reached most of the goals within this one. So this past weekend, I went up to the mountains in upstate Pennsylvania and I wrote the next version of our vivid vision because it's the most important part of our entire recruiting process. So I rewrote pieces of our vivid vision and we have statements in here that, again, so they've already gone through. Keep in mind, they've already gone through our screening interview where we've made them want to work with us, right? We've sold them on the opportunity, the growth rate, et cetera. We've vetted their skills. And then the next step within the interview process, the next keystone thing we're trying to get them to do is read our vivid vision and make a 30 to 60 second video telling us how they intend to make that video, how they intend to make this vision come true. So right here, I'm very clear about this in our vivid vision. We are a team, not a family. Since the word team is in SMB Team's name, it is important to understand we are a team, not a family. In a family business, you tolerate mediocre performance because you are related. In a championship winning team, everybody must be excellent in their roles. And everyone forms very close bonds with one another because we trust each other. We are a championship winning team of A players. This means we are performance-based, fast-moving, numbers obsessed. Because we expect a lot from our team, we also, one, pay you a lot of money. 2, give you a lot of freedom. 3, give you unlimited growth opportunities. And 4, let you win when the company wins with our bonus and incentive plans. Okay. So we are like crystal clear about what exactly our culture is. We're radically transparent. There's no secrets kept here. We want you, our clients, everyone to know everything about our companies at all time. We're crystal clear about our financials, what our goal is for gross revenues, what exact numbers we want to hit each year, okay? What our core business activities are. I showed you that because that is the most important part of this entire process, because that's the part where we reverse the sale. In the beginning, it's a little bit like, okay, we're selling them, we're pretending like we're not. And then when they read the vivid vision and they see that we're going here and here are our growth goals, and you have an opportunity to become a piece of something very special, a once in a lifetime opportunity, they read that, they make us the video, it's lights out. So I want everyone to write this down. Your goal is to get them to read that vivid vision of yours. Okay. Once that's done, it's, as they say, hook, line, and sinker, right? In the recruiting process. Because now they've made the video, now they're selling you. So the tables have turned, right? So that's the most important thing. Differentiating your law firm through all parts through those first 3 touch points, okay? So there's other things that Brandon will show you some stuff on his screen in a second. What exact words are used in your job titles? What exact words are used in the first few sections of your job description, right? Are you creating an employee scorecard of the exact numbers that must be met with the position before you ever put up a job ad? Okay, the next principle I want to share is the importance of displaying a great company, not just having a great company. So it's not enough to be a great culture. You have to encapsulate that culture in a recruiting video, which Brandon's going to show you in a second. You have to encapsulate that in your Glassdoor reviews. You have to have proof with your Google My Business, Google Maps reviews that you're delivering an amazing experience to your clients. A player will be looking up your Google reviews. They will be looking up your YouTube channel. They will be looking up your Glassdoor reviews. They will be looking up, is there any evidence that this business I'm applying to spend 40 plus hours a week of my waking life at, is there any evidence that what they're telling me is actually true and shared by their market? You have to display the value of your law firm like it is a sales pitch, like it is a marketing pitch, right? So that someone else can put 2 and 2 together and go, dang, that company looks amazing. I'm going to pass this over to Brandon, who has a ton of stuff pulled up.
So I think we should start out and take a look at our recruiting video.
I'm Ben Wendt.
Dennis Berry.
Greta Huber.
John Saranik.
Nachum Belofsky.
I'm Melody Zhang, and I am a PPC account manager here at SMB Team.
Okay.
What I do here is what do I do here?
I am the Director of Marketing at the SMB Team. This is Jet. He is our future, security guard?
I am the coaching manager here at SMB Team. I direct the technical team here at SMB Team.
One single word to describe SMB Team. All right, hold on, let me think about this.
Always evolving.
Fast-paced.
Growth-minded.
Innovative.
Collaborative.
Energy.
Fun.
First thing that comes to mind is all-star.
Brilliant.
Talented.
Vibes.
I'm gonna say passionate.
The culture around the office is refreshing.
We're never satisfied with how things are, and we're always trying to improve.
It's not your typical office job. We have a lot of fun. There's a lot of radical candor.
Everyone's really determined to get what we need to get done, as well as go often above and beyond.
I mean, you hear the term like fast-paced so much that it doesn't really mean anything anymore, but it's like energetic.
What drew me to the SMB team was actually the job title was very different. There was a lot of excitement of growing the team and growing the company.
SMB jumped out just because they did seem like they had the best culture all around. Also the most diversity. It seemed like a place where I could come in and really grow and make an impact kind of immediately.
When I interviewed here, this was the first one that I came out of, and I was just like, I had fun on that interview.
I would say that Bill Hauser is the awesome, squirrely marketing guy that everybody wants to know.
Bill is crazy in a good way.
Bill is a bundle of energy, and he is a marketing savant.
Okay.
I would describe Bill as a wild card.
There's usually a palpable energy shift when he walks in the room.
We might all be in the office in the morning getting ready, and he'll come in on a scooter and like rile everybody up and get everybody laughing.
It's nothing like I've experienced before. And that all comes from Bill, right? It comes from the top down. That's how energy is dispersed throughout a company.
He's a fun guy, but he's also incredibly smart. And if it sounds like he's yelling, it's because he cares. He wants you to grow. He wants you to do better.
It definitely does feel like a team environment.
Well, you're gonna edit it, right? So
I'm meant to be behind the camera, but I feel comfortable enough being in front of the camera here because of the culture created at SMB Team.
Click the link below, we're hiring.
Again, you have to force feed this stuff to your applicants. You have to force feed them a link to your video like this. This is such an important asset.
So you can see, I mean, we take this very seriously, right? We build out our flow charts for our whole recruitment process, and it's something we are constantly going back and looking at. We're reiterating. We started this, I came on board July of 21. I think we started right around September. We started looking at the process and started refining. And as Bill alluded to, we've got 15 steps, 16 if you count the proactive reach outs now that we're doing. We're going out and we have an in-house recruiter reaching out. I think the foundation starts, we were talking earlier, with the vivid vision, right? We need to know where we're going as a company, and what are our hopes and dreams and what do we want to build. From there, it's about resource allocation planning. I don't think we really even talked about that, but that is the next step, right? Like figuring out how do I get to that vision and kind of working backwards as a reverse engineer. And then our first step is creating a blueprint.
This is the key though, right here. This is the employee blueprint. So this is what's filled out before we ever start recruiting for a role.
So I think what happens a lot of times is you say, oh, I need a social media manager. And you put a job post out there, you start in the recruitment process, and maybe you're by yourself, maybe you have someone else on your team that's also helping, and you get through and you interview somebody and you sit there and you're talking about, well, are they the right fit? Are they good? Are they bad? And then you're kind of like, well, I don't know, like, what do we actually need there? And you realize that there's so many steps you skip. You didn't even identify who the ideal candidate was, right? And so we created an employee blueprint to eliminate all the questions and all the wasted time interviewing candidates that just don't even make sense. And so we sit down when we identify that we do need a role, right? The first thing we do is whoever the manager is, we say, okay, go fill out a blueprint, right? Because I want to know, what is the role you're proposing? What are they going to be doing? Who is an ideal candidate? And
imagine, go ahead.
I was just saying, the last thing is just making sure also we've exhausted every other resource. Like, is there a technology that we can use? Like, if we scroll down to the bottom here, you'll see they actually have to go through this. Can we use freelancers? Have you researched technology that could help? And is there anyone internally that maybe we could, reorganize their schedule? Maybe they're doing things they shouldn't be doing, and we can take these off their plate and move them over into this role. So it's kind of at the bottom of the document, but that step is actually done first. Then we go up into creating what this role will look like, which includes our scorecard.
You've never had someone on your team say, I need us to hire more people, I'm busy.
It's always the easy solution.
Right? The easiest solution, one thing that our coaches have taught us is,
happens today.
Someone who is not experienced in a manager role, they believe that more people solve problems. An experienced manager knows that the last step is people. You want to first exhaust every option around, can we improve our process? Can we automate a piece of it? Can we eliminate this step altogether? And then it's, okay, great. Can we outsource it? And then its last step is, okay, great. This is a full-time W-2 hire, right? When you're getting started in business, it's hire people because I don't want to put in all this thinking about how to solve the root cause of the problem. So this forces disciplined thinking throughout your team.
And at the bottom, they have to make the case. They have to argue why, after they went through everything, what their findings are, why they still think that this is an actual hire.
And it still may not get approved because it may not meet our strategic plan as a company. It may not meet our budget as a company. So for example, if there's an area of our business that we don't have a budget to add this additional salary into, if that's not part of our strategic plan, then it doesn't matter if there's a valid need behind it because it doesn't match with our overarching plan. So back to you.
Yep, absolutely. So, you can see we have a number of items on the blueprint. We talk about who the person's going to be reporting to, what is the purpose of their role. We usually fill in a Colby and a PI. DISC we do later now after people are hired, which are our assessments, we'll get to in a second here. So we kind of do another type of assessment test to figure out what is the ideal candidate trait set. And then Bill talked about this earlier, bro. The non-negotiables. This was something we added actually recently because it was a game changer, because they would have some things that are good, some things that are bad, but there was just one thing that you're like, we absolutely cannot hire this person because they don't have X.
So yeah, let me talk about this real quick because this changed the game for me and for our recruiting process is, and by the way, as CEO of SMB, like I have all the excuses in the world to not be involved in the recruiting process, right? Just like you do. You're busy, but there's still one thing I always make time for, and that is clarifying the non-negotiables of a role that we're hiring for. Non-negotiables are not, okay, oh, but this person said they had experience, or this person said they managed a social media account before. No, we are asking specifically, when you look at this one, they have managed 100+ client accounts with a total client ad spend of over $3 million per year. They have experience with video ad and image ad campaigns. They have experience with Facebook lead. So that means if they don't have one of those 4 things, they are not being preceded through our interview process. So it's a non-negotiable. When we just hired a new vice president for our company, we said they have to have run I think it was a 40+ million agency.
Yeah, I think that's what, yeah.
They ended up being a part of a $600 million agency, right? Now, we had plenty of people come in who said that they had agency experience and they sounded great on the interview and we got tempted, but then we came back to those non-negotiables and said, sorry, not proceeding you because you don't meet these non-negotiables.
And putting those and questioning the non-negotiables at the front, like Bill said, that's part of our phone screen. So our phone screen was initially just culture, right? That's someone with a good gut. Could be the CEO. For us, we have Dennis, who runs recruitment culture department. So, he's that gut guy that he can really build the excitement around our company, make the people feel what our core values are like and get them excited. But what was happening was we were still getting people slipping through the cracks. And so we came up with the non-negotiable list and we added that to that phone screen because there's no point in wasting anybody else's time if they don't have those. So this was also a game changer for us.
So notice that we have a mission for the role at the top. Go ahead, go through it.
And we've adapted and we've added in a whole section now with, if we go back to, I think it's this one here, you can see now we put in the non-negotiables, the qualifications. So that's now at the top of our debrief section here. And this is so people can make comments along the way. We put in their predictive index assessment, what it comes out to be, their Colby. We link their Vivid Vision video, that video that Bill was talking about, where they had to talk about how are they going to be a part of it? Why do they want to be a part of this company? And how are they going to contribute? We link everything there so that way everyone at every step of the process can easily access everything. And we do it through an applicant tracking system. And then people are going to put in their notes. So Dennis will go in first. He's going to fill in notes, the highlights. It needs to be something that helps the next person in the process. If you have a multi-person process, they need to be able to go in, read, assess, kind of be like, all right, here's where I need to dive a little bit deeper, right? Each step is going deeper on the questioning. And so we use this as a way to kind of stay on the same page and keep the process moving quickly. Department leads are going to go in and build on experience. So they're going to dive in and fill this part out. And then you can see there was no operations notes, which is usually where I'm getting to. So I did not actually interview this person. They got to that point and determined that it wasn't a great fit and stopped the proceedings from going forward.
Yeah. So notice that there's a phone screen, then there's a department lead, and then there's operations, which is Brandon. Okay. So that is our 3-step process for our recruiting. Okay. So why is that important? Phone screen is from the person who does the initial outreach, which is, either Dennis or Dreon. That then gets passed to a department lead. So let's say we're hiring someone for our internal marketing department. That means that Emily, who's in charge of our marketing department, would be interviewing that person for that second round interview. The third round interview is Brandon. Okay. And then the fourth round interview is me. Right. And you may think that is crazy, with as many people we have going through this pipeline, why would Bill still be interviewing people? And it's true, I could delegate it. But I have so much data from the most successful companies in the world, like Google, like Facebook, like so many of the fastest growing tech companies in the world, their CEOs did not give up interviewing until there was more than like 200 full-time employees. Like they interviewed every single person that came through the door, reviewed every resume until there was 200 employees. And that's quite frankly why Google and Facebook have built such strong cult-like cultures, is because the founder was involved in the interview process, right? Do I have everyone's attention? If you want A players in your law firm, you got to understand that your team will feel threatened by A players. So we cannot fully rely on our team's opinions when it comes to hiring A players, because they look at the hiring of an A player as a threat to their job sometimes. So it is vitally important that you are involved in your hiring process until you have successfully hired A players on your team, because you are the only person who is going to hire someone that is smarter than you and or more advanced than someone else on your current team. And that's why the debrief is so vital. I am handed this debrief before my fourth interview, which is what we call the CEO sniff test, right? I'm given a hiring recommendation. I go into the fourth round interview, and in that interview, I am trying to sniff out, is this person going to be a great long-term fit for our company? And you would be crazy the things that I've sniffed out in these interviews. People taking huge drops, like they were like in charge of a huge division, and now they're going to be like, some other like non-manager role in our company. And I asked them one key question that the team didn't think to ask, which is like, why are you stepping down like 3 levels of the ladder to join our company? And it turns out, they're actually just desperate for a job. And they're actually just really persuasive. And they were really likable on the first calls, right? And yeah, they were experienced, but they weren't the right fit for the level of person we needed. They were overqualified, right? For the role that they were interviewing for. Only I can see stuff like that, right? And other stuff like, there's so many different variations of this. Like, is this person, truly going to love the role that they've interviewed for? That's a whole different category. So I'll ask people a very hard question. Hey, you've made it this far in our recruiting process. Let me ask you, why don't you consider a role on insert a different team in our company? Why don't you consider a role in sales? Why don't you consider a role in X? So I call that the job switch. So when you get to the fourth interview, I want to see how committed are they? How committed are they to the position they applied for? And if I get a response from them that's like, heck no, I want this role. What are you talking about? That's what I want. I don't want them to go, sale, yeah, it's fine. Because that means they're desperate for a job. That means they're not really wanting the role they applied for, right? So these questions, they sniff out whether or not this person is the right fit at the right time. So let's go back to sharing the screen and we'll show them.
Yeah, I think because we skipped ahead there. So I want to go back to what happens after the blueprint. All right. So this is another crucial step that I don't think a lot of people put enough time into, right? Like you can tell, like we're really passionate about this. We spent a lot of time and energy, and it's so important because the people you bring in will make or break your company. And on top of that, it's one of the most expensive things you do.
You
right?
don't need to
So-
build systems for your law firm if you have people who know how to build the systems.
We hire the right people and we just let them do their thing. And so after the blueprint, now you've identified who that candidate is, right? So now you're going to go in and you're going to create the job post and you're going to create the questions for that role, specifically for that department lead, right? So one of the things people get wrong is the job post. And I actually had a client today that I was in this mindset talking about recruitment. I saw they made a job post and I went ahead and I reached out to them and I said, hey, here's some feedback if you don't mind. I'd love to offer you this advice. One thing we talked earlier about showing, it's not about showing the job, it's about showing the opportunity, right? A job is about you. It's about the business owner. It's about the firm, right? It's what you need. An opportunity is about them.
Oh my God, it's the most important point that we should hang up right now. Say it again.
So a job is about you, an opportunity is about them. And so again, we said this is marketing and sales right in the beginning. It's marketing and sales. So this job post, you can see we have them, get hooked a little bit. You can see the job title, recruiting and HR coordinator, #1 fastest growing legal marketing and coach company, right? Stands out from just HR, coordinator. Then we have this little thing that I kind of saw someone else's post and took it because I liked it. And then we say, okay, we have the assessments that we take, the predictive index earlier in the process, like with the vivid vision, as I mentioned, that helps us identify how does this person operate? What motivates them? What do they like? What do they not like? And so in these lines here, we will now talk about what appeals to them. Are you detail-oriented, organized, ability to think critically, right? It's things that are great for them and things that we need in that role. And so we say, if you answered yes, keep moving. Now it's all about them. What's in it for you, right? Everyone leads with, here's the job description, or here's all about SMB team. Like, no, there's time for that later. What do they care about? They care about what's in it for them. And so we start with what's in it for them. We talk about the bonuses, the PTO, the benefits, the fun, the investments. Then we get into qualifications, responsibilities, character traits, and at the end, a little bit more about SMB team.
Yeah.
But by that point, they're already kind of sold because they see the initial part and it's what's hooking them.
And does everyone scroll all the way up? All the way to the top? #1 fastest growing legal marketing and coach company. Differentiator. Okay. It's not just recruiting an HR coordinator. It's recruiting HR coordinator plus why the hell should you click on this freaking ad compared to every other ad out there? And why do we always put our industry that we are a legal marketing and coaching company? Well, we do that because we want them to self-select out. We do this in our sales roles as well. We want them to go, oh, I wanted a recruiting an HR role in a hospital. I wanted a recruiting an HR role in an insurance company. I wanted a recruiting an HR role in, there's 1,000 other companies they could work with other than a marketing and coaching company. We want them to immediately see, oh, this is for a marketing and coaching company, so that the people who want a more administrative role with a different industry, they don't ever click on the ad, right? So that's vitally, vitally important. Can we show them the sales one?
Yeah.
Because I think that has really good behavioral, okay?
So same thing where we now people, right? Like aggressive. We use terms like we literally want to push people away. So we do it in multiple stages, and that includes the job post itself. And one other thing, you can see we put compensation in there. One mistake I see a lot of places make is not doing compensation up front. If you don't have the compensation already, don't even make the job post. I want to get it out there because the same sort of thing. If it doesn't fit if they have unrealistic aspirations, what do you think you're going to do? Get them through and then convince them to take less money? It's not going to work out. You're going to waste your time. So I'd rather them weed themselves out at this point.
Yeah. All right. What else?
Next is interview questions. We talked about the assessment traits and we're constantly iterating these questions here. But one of the things we talk about, so questions throughout the process. In the beginning, it's the non-negotiables, it's the core value fits, right? Next, we're getting to departments. So that's a little bit more about experience pertaining to that role. When it gets to me, what's my role? My role is to deep dive on both of those, right? So I'm going to ask more situational questions. I'm going to ask questions where sounds like I want one answer, but really I'm looking for other keys. So one of my favorite things to ask about, like if it's somebody who's problem solving, Give them a situational question. Tell me about a time that you discovered a problem before anybody else did. What did you do? How did you handle that situation? And then I always go back to the classic strength and weakness, and I kind of reframe it, right? So I don't really care what their weakness is per se. Like I do, but I'm not really looking for just like, oh, here's my weakness. I don't want to get a trite answer like perfectionist. But if they say I'm a perfectionist and it sometimes causes paralysis by analysis, okay, I'm going to go back to their predictive index and their Colby. Again, predictive is the one we use in the beginning. We're certified in both Colby and predictive index. So we are really supporters of these tools. And so when they're saying, okay, like, yeah, sometimes I get caught really into the weeds and it can just make me like not make a decision. I'm going to go back to their assessment and I'm going to look at it. If they're scoring really high on details, I'm like, wow, okay, this person's really self-aware. Like that makes sense with what their traits are. It doesn't really matter, what the actual weakness was. I'm looking to see how self-aware are they? How are they responding? Are they willing to be open, vulnerable? Because that's the type of environment we want. That's our culture. And that's our core values. So they think I'm just looking at judging their weakness and I'm looking kind of underneath that rug. And so,
yeah, how do they cover it up?
Yeah.
Like, do they just own it? That's the type of people we want. Like, we want people who are like, yeah, man, I suck at this, like really bad. Like, if I'm going to do this, you probably shouldn't hire me.
That tells you they're coachable. They're aware. They're coachable. I'll take that all day.
I want someone like that.
Yeah.
I don't want someone who turns all their weaknesses into, pseudo strengths.
Yeah. And another great one is asking about the biggest, success in their career and then their biggest failure. And it's so surprising. I've had so many people that up to that point, they were a great candidate. And when they talk about their failure, they're not willing to admit the true defeat, or they'll say something that's just like superficial defeat. And it's like, that doesn't really make sense. Or they'll kind of pull others in and somewhat blame someone else or blame the company.
Yeah.
And so that instantly is a non-starter for me. So you can see, obviously we don't have time to get into every single step of this process. We've spent hours and hours and hours really honing in on every piece of this 15-step process. But there's a lot of thought that goes behind it. And I think that's the biggest thing is a lot of people say, well, I'm busy. I don't have time to build this process. I don't have time to think about all these questions. But I will tell you,
you don't have time to grow your business then.
You are going to waste way more money and way more time if you just don't sit down and do it. Take a weekend, take an evening, and really put the thought and process into it, because this will save you tens and tens of thousands of dollars and will help make you tens of millions of dollars if you do it the right way.